Welcome everyone to this live interview series episode. Today we are honored to have with us our special guest, Dr. Jan Figel, Special Envoy for the promotion of freedom of religion or belief outside the European Union. Today we are actually not in our office, but in a very special place, the European Parliament. And we are happy to discuss some of the things that some of your work and some of the things that you have been doing lately. I would like to remind you that you can ask questions to Dr. Figel by leaving a comment below the video, and we will be happy to pass them on to him. So, Dr. Figel, let's get into the interview. Could you please share a little bit about yourself, your work, and your current responsibilities?
Thank you, Francesco, for not only introducing but also inviting me. And I wish a nice day and all the best to all viewers, all friends of this topic. Yes, I'm Jan Figel, European Union Special Envoy for promotion freedom of religion or belief outside of the European Union, which is the first ever position created last year by the European Commission. I think this is the sign of importance, urgency. We shall speak about it a bit later. I am a Slovak citizen, former member of the European Commission. I was in national and European politics for quite a long time, and now I'm here under your invitation. I think that we live in a very special time. Many people think and speak about crisis, and many people see that there are so many opportunities to make 21st century better time than 20th century. And I think that religious issues may be part of the decisive answer or decisions on future of Europe, future of the world. And fortunately, I'm glad that European Union has a role to play in this.
Thank you, and we are too. We were very pleased to learn about your appointment as first Special Envoy. We thought, among with others, that this was a position that was actually missing. I have had the pleasure to listening to your keynote speech at the recent annual Law and Religion Symposium at Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah. You touched on very important points, and I would like to discuss some of those with you for the benefits of those who did not have the chance to hear it. Let's start with the following. You said, who does not understand religion, especially abuse of religion, cannot understand what is going on in the world today. Can you explain why?
Yes, on one side, religions are important because according many serious data or studies, overwhelming majority of the world population claims religious affiliation. So we are not speaking about something minor or partial. It's a major issue in today's world and of course in the world history. Secondly, ignorance or lack of knowledge, lack of understanding is one of the problems of our time. And lack of knowledge of religions, religious differences, religious meaning or importance in life of people and nations is also part of the growing problem, because we see frequently in media but also in our societies how illiterate people, whether young or less young, are on the religious issues. And actually what's going on in some regions of the world are not religious clashes or fights. This is fight usually taken by those who claim ideology, superiority, want to achieve supremacy over the others, and it's a quest for political power. This is, for example, the so-called Islamic State is not a religion. It is a political organization aimed to impose ideology of ISIS on the territories they besieged in different countries of the Middle East. So those who do not understand religion cannot understand what's going on, even why it's going on, and then cannot bring reasonable solutions. And then we have even bigger problems growing from the improper decisions or wrong policies.
So education plays a major role, and we will touch on that later on. You often say that freedom of religious belief is the litmus test of all human rights. Why it is so?
I think it's a very crucial, special human right, fundamental right, enshrined in Article 18 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but also in other texts. It's so important that it's first of all, it's not only freedom of religion, it's freedom of conscience, freedom of thought, freedom to believe or not to believe, freedom of conviction. So it's much broader than just religious freedom. Secondly, with this definition, it's linked to human dignity, and human dignity is the first value which we declare as the most important on the list of human rights, which is so important to all and everywhere. Human dignity makes our holders of equality and rights connected to human dignity, not given by the states, but respected by states. Secondly, this right, freedom of religion, is implemented, is lived through individual or collective manners. So it can be linked to individual rights and collective rights. Further on, it is expanding right because it's linked to right to manifest, to express, freedom of expression, freedom to assembly, freedom to associate. And from this point of view, I can say, and that's the answer to your question, in countries or in societies where freedom of religion is disregarded, civil or political freedoms are disrespected as well. Where freedom of religion is respected, we see other freedoms flourishing.
Thank you. This brings me to the question about your mandate. So your mandate is to promote freedom of religion belief outside of the European Union. So in the course of your mandate and travel, what is your assessment of the status of freedom of religion belief internationally? The thing is, many Europeans, especially in well-established democracies, take it for granted. But there are areas in the world where freedom of religion belief does not exist.
It's far.
So what?
It's far from granted.
What is your take?
The picture is very, very colorful and rather negative. In more concrete terms, it means freedom of religion or belief is under strong or high restrictions, first, and secondly, tendency is negative. According to many surveys, reports, majority of all population live in countries where high or very high restrictions on freedom of religion or belief are imposed. And the tendency means that there is growing either governmental or non-governmental oppression on these rights. We see 4 levels of restrictions or problems. It's intolerance, discrimination, persecution for faith, and even genocide. This is not because I say it, but because these are the facts in the world today. And we should do much more for promotion, which means for human dignity promotion and culture of human rights, because this is litmus test. The picture is really very diverse, starting from European neighborhood, where Middle East means also genocidal situations. It was noted and criticized by European Parliament, Council of Europe, by US Congress, British Parliament, Australian Parliament, that ISIS mass atrocities constitute genocide in our times. There are countries where blasphemy laws or anti-conversion legislation threatens not only freedom but living of people, whether we speak about Middle East, North Africa, or Southeast Asia. There are non-governmental actors which are persecuting religious or ethnic minorities: Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, and many other different terrorist organizations. So what I say is that tendency is negative and situation also very painful. Europe, European Union, but also institutions like United Nations, democratic countries need to step up in their struggle and support for freedom of religion.
Thank you for sharing this. I mean, it is clear that a lot of people are not aware of all of this. But is there anything good that is happening to FoRB internationally? Have you seen any good practice or any good experience in your mandate?
Yeah, I am not the man of negative messages, basically, and secondly, I also want to assure that my nomination here, our work is a good signal that the European Union wants to pay more attention than it did. In recent years, a lot has happened actually in these premises. For example, in this European Parliament, there is first time ever an institutionalized group dealing with freedom of religion. It's European Parliament Intergroup on FoRB and religious tolerance. European member states, 28 countries, adopted in June 2013 guidelines on FoRB promotion. I'm sorry for this abbreviation, we use it basically, FoRB, freedom of religion or belief. So there is kind of common toolbox for 28 countries, their diplomacies and European External Action Service to deal with the persecuted people, with individual cases, with the legislations or problems in our partner countries. Last not least, my nomination shows that there is a way how to improve. For example, since last year we had first time in European Development Days debate with faith-based actors. If we don't include faith-based actors or leaders into our realities, how can we achieve significant changes if religion in that part of the world is so significant or important? Religious leaders have a say, have authority. Many times they have big influence in their countries, and they should be invited to, for example, support sustainable development, reconciliation, peace processes. Secondly, we have established, first time in 25 years, Lorenzo Natali Media Prize for journalism in FoRB, for amateur and professional journalists who write stories about cases of persecution or interfaith dialogue and cooperation. Much more can be done, and I did, of course, in my 1 year something. We have started processes in Sudan, in Iraq, in Jordan. I visited Morocco, United Arab Emirates. In many countries, we have started something what can bring fruits in coming years. These are not short-term issues. Usually we need, to work long and hard.
Thank you, Dr. Figel. I would like to take this opportunity to remind the viewers that you are watching the live interview series episode with Dr. Jan Figel, the Special Envoy for the promotion of freedom of religion or belief outside of the European Union. And we are well into the interview, but feel free to ask questions and leave them with a comment, and they will be passed to us, and we will ask them to Dr. Figel. Dr. Figel, in your speech, you said that the world is changing through technology, migration, religious demography, etc. And then you asked, is this a promise, meaning is this a positive thing or rather a threat? What is your take?
My point was kind of appeal that we have a say on the answer. We have influence on the two tendencies, whether changing the world is a problematic feature or positive. It depends what is winning, what we support, what will prevail. And I spoke and I speak, this is my conviction about common good versus ideologies of superiority based on nation, on race, on religion, on ethnicity, because our history is full of examples. And common good is about peace, justice, human dignity, solidarity, humanity or brotherhood for all. I am not using empty terms, but very important principles. And everybody has some influence. The rate of our responsibility depends on the rate of our influence, individually and collectively. This is true for citizens, this is true for political parties, for states, for communities and societies. I'm not pessimist. I wouldn't also kind of preach empty optimism. But what we need is committed people who know, who understand, who are courageous enough to deal with the problems of our time. My father, my grandfather, many people around Europe would love to have our problems. Secondly, we can help not only to solve domestic problems in Europe, but around, in Middle East and in the world. Europe has a potential to help.
Thank you. You mentioned responsibility, and you made it clear that everyone has a role to play. Citizens, academics, human rights activists, politicians. What would you tell a teenager who is watching this interview right now? How could he or she make a difference in his daily life? And since we are inside the European Parliament, what would you tell to a politician?
I like to stress that the evil has allies, and I'm sad when I see allies of evil among young people. Ignorance, indifference, or fear. So my message to young people is not to be afraid. Don't be afraid. Study, learn, because you will see the world which is even more diverse than it is now. And don't be apathetic. Youth means future. Young people are holders of future. They actually hold our destiny in hands because they are coming to power, to responsibility, to public life, to their professions. So we need to work with young people, not only for young people, but with young people. It is about dialogue. It is about their engagement. I would like to invite them to be active, to be present. This is their Europe, their time, their future, and our common as well. Politicians, even more as holders of power, they should use their potential, their responsibility for, support of common good, instead of teaching or claiming that my country first, or my nation first. We need to speak about common ground, common good, common interests, and then through this we get to common victory and common future. As I said before, my father or generations before, if I look to Europe, would love to have our opportunity to be on united and free continent. Now we have it, so we shouldn't be full of skepsis or passivity, but active, knowledgeable, and responsible. And this is the best answer, the best gift to ourselves, but also to the world around.
Thank you. These were excellent invitations. Let's see what questions are being asked. So, Paula asks, what is your assessment on the implementation of the EU guidelines on the promotion and protection of freedom of religion or belief? Are those who are actually in need of protection aware they have the EU delegations on their side?
We have over 130 delegations, and it's good that instrument or tool is now in these delegations and in the European External Action Service. But I think what is needed is more knowledge and more practice over these guidelines, because many times they are unknown or unused for the cases in different countries. So the momentum comes now after 3 years to not only reassess, but to do even more with European Parliament and let's say special envoy, or several countries having special ambassadors at large, to deal with FoRB agenda regularly, professionally, actively, and of course successfully for the benefit of people in need.
Thank you. Anna is asking, you visited Sudan recently. What was your takeaway from that visit?
This was one of the most interesting visits I had, because if I say a one-off, I mean in my political life when I was either Slovak or European representative, European Union commissioner, for example. I was first time in Sudan, so a bit unknown country for practical political negotiations. But this visit was so good, so constructive, that I feel I should come back. I was re-invited by Sudanese authorities. We have helped to move or to start some changes, some processes. What probably was the most surprising and positive was a release of 2 groups of people from prison. I helped through different channels, and then finally through the visit in Sudan, Khartoum, to help to get to freedom the group of Peter Jacek, Czech activist who was imprisoned and sentenced for 24 years in Sudan. And he had also collaborators from Sudan, Sudanese, who got 12 years of jail. They are now free. And then in August, even more sensitive case happened when Professor Mudawi was released, and he was under the threat of death sentence as human rights defender, together with 5 activists. I was the first foreigner politician who visited Professor Ibrahim Mudawi in his prison, which was a sign of, very open and kind of willing approach from the Sudanese government, because they didn't do it before. And later on in the this process, what happened was very surprising, positive, and encouraging sign that freedom to this man is given. And I hope this will not be kind of exceptional case, but rather tendency in the country where a lot of problems are still very visible in terms of human rights or freedom of religion or inter-community relations. But Sudan for me was a case study showing that not preaching and teaching, but working together with serious partners can make a difference. And if we continue, if we invest into such cooperation, I think we can help many more people in Sudan and also in other countries.
Thank you. Joshua is asking, as politics and cultures across the world become increasingly more secular, what is the best way to protect and fortify religious freedom and its role in society?
Sacral, secular is not a problem. Problem comes when secular becomes kind of imposition over plurality. What we need for freedom of religion to grow, to deliver good fruits for daily livings of people, is a secular state which is fair, which is not imposing its ideology, secularism, which is not closing the space for different religions and communities, but defining space for plurality. And in that case, such state is a blessing for different religions. It's kind of fair referee on a pitch where we live, where we move. When secularism is false, it usually takes place of religions, tries to replace, to wipe out religious freedoms. So from this point of view, true, fair, secular state is very important expression of civil society and civil state, which means state based on citizenship and equality for all, not on ethnicity or on religion.
Thank you. This is close to the previous question, but as a slightly different angle. Hannah is asking, how would you respond to people who worry that more freedom of religion or belief for other people means less freedom for them? Is there a balance?
There is always. Balance is always important in terms of my freedom ends where your freedom starts. So together we can enjoy freedoms, or together we can fight. And freedom of religion, freedom of conviction, which is part of the human freedoms and fundamental rights, can be enjoyed by all, and the universality of this principle, universality of the whole list, is an invitation to recognize that these freedoms belong to all, not only to traditional, not only to majority communities, but to all. Actually, what we need is to learn how to live in freedom. And living in freedom is always possible, lasting, sustainable, only with responsibility. So I am responsible for my freedom and for our freedom together, with you, with many, with all. If we don't share this responsibility, if we don't care for responsibility, our freedom will be lost, sooner or later.
Thank you. I have a question from Maria. Maria is asking, how can we share this message of freedom to those who do not understand religion and its role? How have you handled this in the past?
We have to learn. We have to learn how to live in complexity, in openness, in freedom, in a very diverse world. I want to stress that there is freedom to believe and not to believe, or to change belief. So it doesn't mean that there is kind of promotion for religions against non-religions, or because human dignity is based on freedom in full sense. And from this point of view, we have to learn a lot. I like to mention human dignity because this is something what should unite all humanists, whether they are secular, non-believing, or religious, believing humanists. Because if human dignity for us, for these humanists who claim they are humanists, is really the first value, they should meet from different angles at the same point. If that's not the case, the problem is not human dignity, but lack of credibility of our or theirs or anybody's humanism. So I think that once we embrace human dignity as the first value, as it is defined in the European Charter of Fundamental Rights or Universal Declaration of Human Rights from 1948, whether we come from scientific or religious, traditional, different cultural angles, we should embrace this first value because it's important for me, for you, for everybody.
Thank you. I see a question is coming. I would really like to take this question if it's coming soon. Adam. But let me see. No, it's not coming. Well, any final comment or remark before we conclude this interview?
I already mentioned these allies of evil. 20th century is full of lessons, especially in Europe. And when people in their communities tend to neglect, not to be interested, not to know, to close down, we face growing tendencies of problems or clashes. And I don't accept the line or the prophecy of clash of civilizations. No, we need more civilizations, we need civilized world, we need to work for civilization. But what is really potentially and possibly coming is clash of ignorances. If we don't care, if we don't know, and therefore I'm grateful for this interview. I'm grateful for your work here in Brussels, for communication on importance of the topic, which is not material, but decisive for human dignity, for human relations, for cultures to live together, for the world to live in unity and diversity. And here I would like to invite everybody, because we all have responsibility for such world, not as a dream, but as a reality to come.
And with this invitation, we can close this interview. Thank you very much, Dr. Figel, for your time. Thank you for your work, for your word of wisdom today, which we'll take in our work. And thank you for watching us, and we'll stay informed for our upcoming live interviews and our activities. Thank you very much.
Thank you all the best.